to Discograffiti, the deep dive podcast for music obsessives that gives maniacs like you and me the chance to connect with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and when I was a kid, I thought I loved music. But no, that was only the beginning. I almost lost my life, and in the process, it made music a top priority in a way I'd thought was completely unimaginable. I quit my job, went all in on Discograffiti, and never looked back. And so, with 3 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about, or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on Love! Along with our special guest, Johnny Echols. This episode is part of a series called 7 and 7 and 7 Is, the definitive 21-episode story of Arthur Lee and Love, which I've consciously crafted to act as the ultimate repository of fact and opinion on one of the greatest bands to ever walk the face of the earth, the almighty Love. It includes 13 episodes heralding the return of Discograffiti host OG Joe Kennedy, 6 episodes from a 4.5-hour interview with OG Love mainstay Johnny Echols, and 2 episodes from a 2.5-hour interview with the members of Baby Lemonade, who've served as Love now for coming up on 35 years. This is part 12, the 6th and final part of my first interview with Johnny. It's also the part I think of when I look back on our conversation. Here are just a few of the many things that Johnny discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. How Johnny felt about all the Love records that came after Forever Changes, Johnny's opinion on the damage that Arthur did to Love's legacy with the later records, regrets over drug abuse, Johnny's upcoming plans with Love, Johnny's modest outlook on Love's legacy, and a story about Jack Holtzman at the very end that'll be seared into my brain for the rest of time immemorial. And away we go then! As great as Forever Changes is, has it hogged too much of the acclaim in the entirety of the Love story?
Well, yes and no, because without that, we'd be an asterisk, so to speak, and also ran. It wouldn't, without Forever Changes, it would change the whole focus.
I got to say, I think side one of Da Capo's as good as anything on
I agree with you, but the thing is, how many people know that? The people that know Forever Changes is way, way exponentially more than who would recognize the songs from Da Capo, except for 7 and 7 Is. So,
yeah,
it's hard for me. It's hard for anyone that's been closely involved with someone to actually summarize what it's meant. At this point, I would think that Forever Changes actually has been more helpful than it's been detrimental to the legacy because of the fact that it's put us in a whole other category. And when we are mentioned with the greatest, especially like in the British Parliament and giving a proclamation of that, that just doesn't happen to, the Eagles don't have that.
Yeah.
So, and the Doors don't. So when they look at it that way, I think because of that, and because it was so just out there, it's like, a guy is painting a house and then all of a sudden he paints the Mona Lisa. When you have a house painter, people want to know how that happened.
Right.
And I've tried my damnedest to explain how that happened and how Love, this band of guys playing in a little club, all of a sudden was just the cat's meow, how we were just being inundated with so many different things. And, we were a good group. I'd say we were a better than average group. But there are a lot of better than average groups out there. So why us? And I can't explain that. And I, to this day, don't understand that. And I've tried my damnedest to figure it out, but I haven't so far.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier. And sometimes it's for, terrible things. And sometimes not. Sometimes you just can't explain why. It just is.
And sometimes I guess you're not supposed to explain it, I guess.
And Forever Changes is so good that even Arthur Lee, try as he may, couldn't kill it.
Well, but that's what makes me feel so good is the redemption all the shit that he went through and all the shit that he pulled to finally at the end, man, to get the recognition, and that makes me feel good. That makes it doesn't really, but it sounds good to say it makes it worth it. It makes it almost worth it, just seeing the look on his face and how proud he was, finally to be recognized. So
how much damage control did you have to do for the legacy tarnishing over the last 20 or so years?
At first I was pissed off, about all of the stuff that was going off. And then I thought, well, all you can do is tell what happened as far as and what you saw with your own eyes and what you did yourself. There are people out there that are going to believe bullshit, and that's fine. There's nothing I can do about that. But, for a while there, it did bother me, all of the nonsense and the rumors. I blame that because, after everything is said and done, Arthur and I were friends. He was my friend. We grew up together. And I watched him deteriorate. And I blame people like Jack Holtzman for that, because he fed him all of this bullshit. And Arthur started believing the nonsense that was told him by this man for whatever reason he did it. I don't know why he did it and why he chose to manipulate things the way he did. What did he gain out of that? I don't know.
Yeah, that is a good question. Maybe he just does not have the insight or the knowledge to know that Arthur Lee was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Oh, of course he knew. He knew in his heart because he could see the times he was there. He could see how things were. And so how he presented them to be and what I know he saw with his own eyes, are vastly different. There was one, brief story I'll tell you. We were coming back I'd gone there with Arthur to New York, and Jack was bringing us to the airport. We were in his little Mercedes, little purple Mercedes. And in the back, there was these magazines, and one was called A Realist by Paul Krasnow, I believe. He did this. This was really, really black humor. And in that, there was an article about Lyndon. They were on the Air Force One going back to Washington after Kennedy had been assassinated. And this is black humor. They have Lyndon Johnson fucking the neck wound of John Kennedy. Now, Arthur's reading this and he says, man, is this real? It's naively real. And I saw the look. Mark Abrams and Jack Holtzman were up in the front. And I'm looking at them and I can see from the side, they look at each other and smirk and say, yeah, it's real. And, I've always thought of that. There's a couple of instances and things that happened in my life that have just really caused me to think and given me pause. And that was one of them. That's just showed what he really, he just basically, we're a couple of niggers. That's the way he looked at us, dumb niggers.
What year was that?
This would have been in 1966.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because for him to say something like that, and smirk, he was just dismissing Arthur totally, and it really bugged the hell out of me. And the other thing that I've done, probably the things that I'm least proud of in this is...
All right, that concludes your free sneak peek into today's bonus episode. If you want to hear the rest of it, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either purchase this podcast by itself for $4, or better yet, subscribe at the major tier and get access to Discograffiti's 3 weekly episodes. That's Friday's main episode, the Sunday Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's our podcast within a podcast featuring Patreon members as guests, and your Tuesday bonus episode. Please keep in mind this is entirely how I support my wife and 7-year-old son, so don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not supporting Discograffiti. Become a member so you don't miss a single thing at patreon.com/discograffiti.